134 U.S. military deaths since the beginning of the war in Iraq. And of the tens of thousands of Marines who ship out for Iraq from the 29 Palms Marine Base, 75 Marines have made the ultimate sacrifice. One of those fallen Marines, a 20-year-old Lance Corporal, is remembered as a hero. Chance Phelps took enemy fire so others in his unit could get to safety.
But to know the sacrifice of this Marine, you need to know more than just his name. This is the story of his journey home. KMR6 reporter Elizabeth Cook joins us right now with this story tonight. Elizabeth?
Tom and Karen, a fellow Marine was given the mission of taking Chance Phelps home to his family. What he learned about Phelps and the people he met during the journey to his Marine's final resting place is truly inspirational. Tonight, in his own words, Lieutenant Colonel Mike Strobel shares his story of taking Chance.
Chance Phelps was wearing his St. Christopher medal when he was killed on Good Friday. 8 days later, I handed the medallion to his mother. I didn't know Chance before he died. Today, I miss him.
Lieutenant Colonel Mike Strobel has been a Marine for 23 years. He is stationed in Quantico, Virginia. He has had his fair share of difficult and dangerous missions, but nothing could have prepared him for the mission he volunteered for 2 years ago.
They asked for volunteers to be casualty escorts. I think, like all the escorts did, that it was such an important thing that we need to do for the families. I didn't really stop to think about what it would be like or what to expect.
His trip would last for 8 days. His mission? To bring the body of Lance Corporal Chance Phelps from Dover Air Force Base to his home in Du Bois, Wyoming. Iraqi fighters shot and killed Chance Phelps outside of Baghdad. Fellow Marines say the 19-year-old put himself in harm's way, saving the lives of dozens of Marines.
Except to tell the first class.
Mike Strobel wrote Taking Chance, a story about his journey with Lance Corporal Phelps. He started writing for his supervisor as a technical critique of his trip.
As the journey unfolded, I started to get a sense that this was something more than just a trip to Wyoming.
Mike's article became an inspiration to the men and women in the armed forces. Even people without any connection to the military were moved by Mike Strobel's mission.
Construction workers who happened to be working on the grounds at Dover Air Force Base, who would take their hard hats off and stand still when each hearse would depart. The hearse driver who, talked to me as if I had personally lost a relative.
He remembers a special gift from a stranger.
She reached down and it didn't say anything. At first she reached down and grabbed my hands, and she put something in my hand, and she said, "I want you to have this." And she laughed before I could say anything. And I opened my hand, and it was a crucifix with a relief of Jesus on it. And it was very worn and smooth around the edges. And I assumed that it had probably been hers or in her family's for a long time. And I thought, that was pretty remarkable that she gave it to me. And I think really she was giving it to the family.
He would learn more and more about Chance Phelps through his belongings. He would give to the family in Wyoming: a wooden cross, a St. Christopher's medallion, and a huge digital watch.
He was an artilleryman, which is what I am, and it's not uncommon because of often the timing of the fires is critical. That artillerymen have just large digital watches that do all kinds of things, and when I got that, I thought, yeah, I know this guy a little bit.
Mike Strobel saw Chance for the first time when he arrived at the funeral home near Du Bois, Wyoming. He wanted to make sure Chance's uniform was perfect before he finished his mission.
I noticed that he wore 6 ribbons over his marksmanship badge. The senior one was his Purple Heart. I have been in the Corps for over 17 years, including a combat tour, and was wearing 8 ribbons. This private first class, with less than a year in the Corps, had already earned 6.
Mike Strobel spent the last day of his trip at Chance's funeral. The ceremonies were held in the high school gym. Marines from across the country and even high-ranking generals from Washington came to honor Chance. About 900 people live in Du Bois. Over 2,000 were in the gymnasium that day. He had the chance to meet Chance's family before the services began.
Didn't know how to talk to somebody who had just lost a 19-year-old son. They immediately thanked me for my service and for bringing him home, and it was almost like they were comforting me.
He handed the flight attendant's crucifix to Chance's mother. She wore it on her lapel through the funeral service and later placed it on Chance's casket before he was lowered into the ground. After the services, Chance was buried on a hill overlooking his hometown. Mike Strobel watched his mission end as Chance was lowered to his final resting place.
As I watched them carry him the final 15 yards, I was choking up. I felt that as long as he was still moving, he was somehow still alive.
After word of Mike Strobel's story spread, Chance Phelps became a symbol of bravery and sacrifice for the Marine Corps. In 29 Palms, memorial plaques are placed around the 3rd Battalion section of the base. Last week, 2 years after his death, a mess hall at 29 Palms was renamed in Chance's honor. Mike Strobel's article has kept the memory of Chance Phelps alive, but for his family, taking Chance was difficult to read.
I read it once, but it's a piece of Americana. It was written from his heart, and it speaks well of our country and our community and Chance himself.
He'd always be like the stand-up comic for everybody, kind of made everybody relax a little bit.
The dimples say it, too.
Look at the dimples.
Yeah.
He's a comedian.
Barry M., all present or accounted for.
The Marines at 29 Palms get 96 hours of leave time every Memorial Day weekend. Many choose to go to the beach, Las Vegas, or home to their families. But on Memorial Day 2005, a group of Marines chose a different destination.
Then they drove over 1,000 miles to DuBois, Wyoming, to visit Chance's grave. These guys, they could have gone anywhere. Could have gone to their own families, but they got in a van and they drove to see Chance and his family, and then drove back and went to work. And I think that's a fraternity.
You know, and we're just honored that, you know, so many other people have lost their children or their spouses or their fathers or their uncles or whoever. And, you know, they're not all getting honored the way he is because of Colonel Strobel's story.
If you would like to read Lieutenant Colonel Mike Strobel's story in its entirety, go to our website at KMIR6.com. Karen and Tom, back to you.
Okay, an amazing story, and it's like every fallen serviceman or woman has their own story. Just one example of it.
That's right. They're not a name or a number. They're a lot more.
Yeah.
Very touching. Coming up.